feel better.
Bigger isn't always better for me. It's more really pouring what I can do into a piece. I'm basically self-taught, and I focused on the Old West, where leather was used for everything. And I focused on the American cowboy. I was romantically interested in it. I was in my mid-20s, and I had acquired a true cowboy type of pistol in Alaska, and I wanted to build a holster. There were some traditional leather stores down in Pioneer Square, and I went and I talked to people and just started trying to figure out how to do leather work to build a holster for this pistol. And that really opened me up eventually to seeing what a difference and how elegant this leather work was from 100 years ago. For instance, the chaps and the spur leathers. I started putting my own outfit together, showing what I was building. Like a musician, without an outfit, you don't go too far. So, at least in rock and roll. I traveled around and continued to learn more about how to work in leather. I got a lot of attention. I had a lot of old timers come up and give me little tips, and I just created a line that was incredibly receptive around the country. Other people had done reproductions, but I think my specialty was to combine features of other masters of the period into my own style. And that eventually got me endorsed by most of the major Western museums in the country. I'm very innovative with the material. I was one of the few people that applied a very aggressive but true antique finish to the leather with cracking textures and translucent color tones. It's not just leather, it's metal, it's fabric, whatever application gives me the design I've been commissioned to do, or something that I just come up with because I really like the design idea of something. It's of a level that it catches the eye of people that see what's going on. And I built amazing client base around the country. I was fortunate enough to grow up learning about the outdoors, backpacking. That spurred the cowboy idea. That fit with the, particularly the outfitting companies, Filson and Eddie Bauer. And I've always compared Filson to be the Levi Strauss of the Northwest. It's such a classic, iconic Northwest brand. I helped them with a bit of changing design in a more contemporary way. They're currently doing that. I was a little early on that, but I really pushed for the same functionality, but just layering with lighter materials, because the original Filson stuff can be kind of painful. It's so stiff, but it's cool. Cool is that, yeah, it's, for outdoor wear. I did that with Eddie Bauer too. Eddie Bauer was started in 1927. Eddie Bauer himself has a fascinating background. He was a trapper, strung tennis rackets and wore shawls downtown Seattle, mountaineering and supplying the first trip up Everest. But I looked at that, and how could elements of that be brought into a contemporary but old school looking outer wear? So I picked backpacks, duffel bags, journal covers, looking into their tradition and materials, and also using the construction I learned in the cowboy stuff. What kind of rivets, the little details that make it really cool. And they were successful. They had a good company. But I guess the biggest learning curve as well from design was working with Ralph Lauren, and that was off and on for 8 years. They thought my work was a collection I put together until they found out I made it. And then they immediately sent it to New York, and it went down the runway on Claudia Schiffer and that whole group of supermodels. And then all of a sudden, I had to find manufacturing here in the island, and I got the Mukai warehouse, redid it, got some local people that were interested in working, bought the machines, and made thousands of pieces. The fun part of it, having them come out and bring samples from their collection or send them to me all the time, I would tell them what I learned and how these combination of these elements from different, really important pieces that Ralph had collected, how we could, again, put them into a combination of things. I really knocked them out. You know, they called me and said, "You raised the bar here on leather."
Was that the fun part?
Oh, all that's great. It's like going on a hiking trip. You get a whole bunch of mosquito bites, but you only remember the really good parts when the sun came up in the morning. It was a cool experience. It was a lot more stressful than people might think. You think it's really a big deal, and I mean, I got right at the top. So that opened up a whole bunch of doors. Another thing occurred. One of my clients put me in touch with the head of Marlboro. So I flew to Chicago and I met the founder. I then started going to photo shoots to measure all the guys. I got the contemporary main guy to come to Vashon. He stayed at the Back Bay Inn, and we fit him for some very specific clothing. And another big design challenge, because color tones, texture for what time of year. And then when the kind of the recession of 2008 and 9 came, a lot of these contracts I had to pull in tight. And Marlboro went from, I don't know, 60 some photo shoots down to 4. And so those eventually kind of ended. You know, I went down to the flagship store at the University of Washington and then got a big contract with Sundance for 3 years. Just by bringing the portfolio and showing what I did. And I had a nice time with them. These are the patterns that you would see on saddles and holsters. And these are all the things I focused on my early work. But as I said at Swiftwater, I didn't know these tools existed, so I made my own. I just took gears and put a craft tool and just thumbed a knurled knob off. I took typewriters apart, anything, to get these cool things I could. And as time went on and people started copying me, I always came to the show with something that they couldn't figure out. It was an impression using poker chips once with a card suit. And the Germans were so into, they even showed up at the island and took pictures of all my stuff. They were really rude. I had to kind of throw them out at the end, but they were here to just suck information out of me. And they were master craftsmen, and they copied it, almost could do my work. That poker chip showed up about 6 years later on where I had used the idea. They figured it out, but it was all a copy. That's not innovation. Well, a couple of years ago, I needed to move from where I was, which is a beautiful farmhouse. And just before my moving here, I'd had an art collector come in and ask if I'd ever done sculptural pieces with leather. And she was kind enough and could support me to really let me develop that. I built pieces for her using leather, sculpting it, plus as I built stuff, I learned that leather can really do so much more than you think. And we started with kind of Tibetan influence pieces with the Buddha and various things. And they were very successful. And this individual's crows were her totem. So I also started doing the crows. And these are all in leather. And particularly with the crows, because of their intelligence, I figured I could put these leather crows in all these fun and humorous situations based on their high intelligence. And that's kind of where I've turned it. Before I had a box around me, everything had to stay in a framework. As wild as I was with it and experimental, a guy can only make so many belts and accessories. And I didn't want to go out on a limb and try to innovate some new big line. Bigger isn't always better for me. It's more really pouring what I can do into a piece. These represent all of my interest in various objects I've collected. I see something, it spurs an idea, I come back and I start building it. And I'm very proud. This is, again, but the bottom line is just taking leather into a more formal art form, which I don't think anybody's done as well. I mean, there's fantastic leatherworkers out there, but they've stuck with traditional boundaries. I'm felt compelled to go further. So I'm shifting right now, and I'm doing pieces based on things of my era in Seattle, like Rainier beer and slugs. And I don't want to sound too strange about it, but real Northwest iconic pieces into a series of sculptures. There's so many new people moving here. Remind them of something that was important to me in this time period, plus some history in it that they can learn from.
What's it like to be in the Swiftwater Gallery here, right here on Vashon?
Well, it's been fabulous. I mean, what a enjoyable group of knowledgeable artists that I'm learning from, because I have not followed traditional paths with art. When I'm in Swiftwater and talk about all this, which I'm really starting to open up to and learn more, what I've learned from other people, how professional they are, and just a camaraderie there that is accepting of also my new work. I've been doing my medium on the island for almost 40 years now. Often I was working with very elite, irreplaceable antique items. I was worried about exposure from someone that might want to break in or anything, and I just flat out had generated a ton of work. So for, I'd say, almost 35 years, I stayed silent. So it was one of the first times I had a chance to explain my whole story, which is very interesting and long. And the interaction with the people, either about your work or other people's work, it's a huge plus for me to be a part of that. And it's really opened up me exploring more about not just what I do, but what others do. And there's quality work on Vashon, and I would like to see more people recognize how serious this group of artists are and how good they are. I'm just happy to be here, part of Vashon, part of Swiftwater, and just keep building good stuff.